And it was amazing. And it was always inspiring. Now, most of his audience were people of trades that they're not thinking about the meaning of a kitchen in the life of a family. They're thinking about, design or board feed or, laminate materials and, but he always wanted to keep reminding them of the business they were in. It was not about selling cabinets. It wasn't about designing kitchens. It was about creating the center place where families tend to gather more than any other place in a home. They gather in the kitchen. This is the hearth of the family, and we need to design these kitchens to support the life of a family. And ad nauseum, he would give the same story. And he always had his same old little stories. He talked about Mrs. Angle, and his last name was Angle, Miss Angle, and he's very charming, completely down-to-earth guy. And I don't think people ever got tired of hearing it. That's the interesting thing. You have these tough tradespeople, but they never got tired of these corny stories. Because on some level they liked the idea that they were doing something meaningful. And I think that's so framing the work is important because people really do forget the business they're in. They get lost in the competitive pressures. It was the distribution of credit fair, of, oh my God, they didn't treat me quite right because I'm an X, Y, and Z. How come they're getting all the money and we're not? I mean, we get all caught up, of course, each of us do, in the local world that we're in, and we lose sight of the larger context of what we're trying to do together. And we need to be lifted out. Yes, Jesse.
In our environment, I see a couple of different responses with that blue sky framing.
Yes.
One in which people feel very inspired by that large view and that's really unified.
Yes.
The other in which the inspiration seems out of touch with whatever are the local pressures that people are experiencing.
Yes.
And the response is more, oh, they don't get it.
Right.
It's too blue sky, too out of touch.
Right.
So what is it the individual that distinguish those two scenarios? Is it the...
Yeah, it's your ability, and I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying it's a person's general ability to move up and down levels of abstraction many times a week. So that you're providing the frame, but you're also getting into the trenches with people. And saying, okay, now I want to understand the conflict. So you're not using the blue, the higher, the more general shared value as a way to say, okay, listen, we're all trying to do this together now. Look, why don't you just all get along and keep me posted? No, you have to orchestrate the conflict and really try to understand the issues and the history of the issues over time. Sorry. But then you also, in the midst of the conflict, you need to be able to lift people out. Wait a second, this is really tough. Let me just remind us what we're trying to do. I mean, this is an extraordinary opportunity we have to try to push the envelope in generating a breakthrough that cures people, whatever it might be. So I think it's the going back and forth that, so when you bump up and remind people, for a fraction of a second, it'll cool off the pressure cooker. You'll bring them down into here because they're remembering what they're trying to do. But then you still have to work the issue. And so it's both provide the framing that holds people in the conversation and then work the conversations that divide them and cause them to fly apart. In the hope that working these conversations will build more capacity so that you can be more productive. Does that begin to... It's a back and forth.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Namely, are you talking about the kind of inspirational high-level message not being effective uniformly across
imagine in the kitchen example, there's people in that room feeling very inspired, and there are people saying, yeah, we get it, but I'm underpaid, and let's figure it
Right,
out.
I still got my problems.
I still have my
Yeah,
problems.
I mean-
like that's great. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
kitchens are great.
a few years ago they unionized a lot of people at Harvard, and they had buttons saying, "You can't eat prestige."
Yeah.
So stop trying to feed us prestige. We need to pay our mortgage. So I completely agree. So I'm
I love
not
the
telling
idea
you
that the unifying theme of Harvard is prestige.
Yeah.
Come on, people, we're all here for the prestige.
Sorry.
The idea that we're all here at Harvard for the prestige. It's an interesting. I thought that was
Only
funny.
Harvard would think of that.
Right, like a common mission.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole conversation. If Ray and his team ever take us back to that nice restaurant for dinner after a glass of wine, we can have that conversation. I'm not saying that framing buys you everything at all. I'm just saying that it is an important component.
Well, and if it works on some people, that's probably value add anyway.
Yes.
So even if you don't manage to bring everyone along, at least getting most of the people there is going to help you address the conflict.
Unless you think it's negative for something, right? Like, does it
Yeah,
counterproductive?
I think I see there are a few different types of people and how they respond to framing. There are those that are inspired by it. There are those that are kind of neutral, and then I think there are some that react negatively.
Yeah.
And
But you need some way.
what's that? Yeah, there you go again with your cancer business.
You need some way to unify people to know what direction to head in, right?
Right.
So maybe you have to tone it down in terms of making it a little more clear that that's what everybody needs to be moving towards. But I still feel like you have to have some vision to say, why does this company exist, or why does bread exist, or what,
And you may not be bumping it, again, you may not be bumping it up to the, we're trying to cure cancer, or here's why the Broad exists, or here's why at the most abstract level. But it might be bumped up just one level of generality above where the conflict is. Listen, this is what we're trying to do on this project. And I know it's hard because there's wins and losses, but wouldn't it be really cool if we can? So let's not forget what we're trying to do in this project. We're trying to discover what X molecule does in Y condition. So it's specified. So it doesn't sound too.
I feel like
I
the
mean-
genuineness matters.
Yes.
Right? Like if it's a tactic, you're done for. But if it's genuine, if your ability to orient the group is genuine, because that is how you see it and that is what you value. It's different to, well, let me sell you something to try and get us past, whatever's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think this idea that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, part of that's also, like you said, kind of remaining credible with your story. Part of remaining credible is also being able to articulate that maybe some of these challenges aren't face. You tell your nice inspirational story and say, yes, and we appreciate these are some of the challenges that we'll overcome. Might help a little bit. At least, if you keep doing that over and over and you don't solve any of those problems, then you lose credibility. But at some point you should acknowledge the challenges. At the same time, I think that you're framing the big picture.
We'll look at different cases, of course. Each case is. So, from the little that you mentioned about your Charter platform, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in the evolution of a complex organization like this, the role of each platform is going to evolve, I would just guess, over time, and its funding and the sense of importance that it has, significance that it has, will also fluctuate over time as the science unfolds and as competing organizations develop some of those same platform technologies.